Hi, and welcome back to PatientRx. I'm Jessica Krauser.
And I'm Tina Fall.
And we were at the Sirius XM studios at the Wynn in Las Vegas at Assembia Specialty Pharmacy Conference 2025. And we are very excited to bring our guests who are also podcasters. And instead of in the pharmaceutical world, they're in the medical device world. So we would like to introduce the Secrets in Medical Device Sales podcast. We have Lisa and Cindy with us. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We are so excited to be here and honored. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast. Cindy and I, we love this opportunity to talk to other very exceptional, very amazing women. So we're just happy to be here. Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely. It is actually our honor to have, fellow podcasters join us, and our worlds kind of collide, within the healthcare industry. And I think that just having this conversation of how our worlds collide is just it's going to be a lot of fun.
So you guys met because you interviewed Tina just about a month ago, right?
Yeah. Yes, we did.
It was a fantastic interview. It was so heartfelt. It was very inspiring, Tina. Your story was amazing. We've had so many people write into us thanking us for having you on, talking about everything that you've been through as well as your foundation that you have. And, it goes to show that when you have powerful women at the forefront of things, it's sky's the limit in what you can achieve. And it just was a really inspiring story. We loved having you on.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun for me to just talking about the story, and also being able to spread the message and the mission of what we're trying to do. And that's been very, very important for me as I keep moving along my journey.
Well, I will say we've had the opportunity to meet two other women who have just taken upon themselves to take things a step further. When you say we want to, make change and we want to see things happen. So the two of you in your field form together for a podcast with a mission in mind and get word out there. And Lisa and I in medical device, same thing. We see an area where nobody else is doing anything to help impact whether you're working in a certain area or patients. And I think that what's been very uplifting is meeting other women who at this level bring us all up to make change for better.
Yeah. What I wanted to do is, why don't each of you introduce yourselves a little bit and tell us about your background and how you came to be with your podcast.
Yeah, sure. You want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
So I've been in medical devices now for, I don't know, almost 27 years. Not straight out of college, but soon after college, I was lucky enough to get a position. And I say lucky because 27 years ago, it was a man's world. It's still a man's world, but it was really a man's world back then. I think I was one of maybe two females in the entire sales field, and that was with a wonderful company back then. But I was able to dive in and really learn a lot about medical devices. My father's an orthopedic surgeon, so growing up, you see them interact with these sales reps. They're coming over for dinner, they're having a good time, then they're working in the OR together. And I thought, what a cool thing to do, to really be a part of medicine without having to go to medical school. So, I've just spent my entire life kind of going from different company to different company, not too many, but I've done everything from cardiac to, open surgery to thoracic to vascular. And I love the medical field. It is an amazing place to be, to really elevate your career and to experience life. I've traveled, I've met amazing physicians, I've met amazing people. We're very lucky to have wonderful health care. And I love working with the men and women that are just brilliant in their fields. And Cindy will talk about this as well, but Cindy and I ended up coming to the same company together. And one day we were talking and we were sharing podcasts back and forth. And she's like, oh, you got to listen to this one. And oh, I got this one. And one day she just said to me on the phone, why don't we do our own?
Yeah.
And why don't we give back to all of the women out there that don't know what we already know from the 20 plus years of stumbling over things and learning things and getting beaten down and picking ourselves up. Let's just help them out and give them a quick way of learning things. You know, don't reinvent the wheel. We'll hand you the wheel and then you get to learn from our experience.
And that's really unique because I find that women often don't mentor each other. And there's very few that will step up to the plate to mentor others.
I absolutely agree. And the interesting thing, so my background is completely different than Lisa's. I started in a all women field to be in pretty much male dominated. So my background is all clinical, all science. I was a nurse practitioner, nurse first, worked for years. And I never even heard of medical device. I was in my late 20s. I didn't even know it existed. And I did a lot of pediatrics, so I think I was a little sheltered. But anyway, and then one day I had one of our pharmaceutical companies that came in, she worked for me, Johnson, said, I think you should go into sales. And I was like, what? She's like, I'm quitting my job, meet my boss tomorrow. Well, at the same time, my husband was switching jobs. I'm like, well, maybe I could do that for getting the weekends off and not be on call. And then realized it was the conversations and sales. I'm like, oh yeah, this is my speed. However, at that time, I wasn't as clinical as I really wanted to be. So medical device has so many different layers. You have distributors, you can go from selling diapers to being in an OR. And I knew I wanted to be in an OR and be back bedside with patients because it's all I knew and it's what I loved. Mm-hmm. So, but then had kids, and then finally I get into, always wanted to do cardiac, and aortic is where we are. And we're in the OR, and it's such a great, rewarding field because you get to partner with the physicians. And I see the similarities when I was a nurse practitioner and when you're looking at patient care and whether you're diagnosing, treating, and helping, and that medical device is an extension of that. And it's really exciting. And then I will say in my career journey, going from working with all women, they don't support you. I can remember thinking, I just want to run to the bathroom for 20 minutes. Or, well, no. Or can you watch my patient if I go, breastfeed? That was always like a big deal when you're younger. And then I get here and I met Lisa. And she was one of the first people I met when we came to this company. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's a doer. She gets things done too. And it felt so good to align with other women, and that fast forward to she said, when we talked about starting a podcast, literally, remember I would send you hey, put on minute 16 minutes and 14 seconds in. That's the only part that pertains to us because everything else was finance or real estate. So we really ended up just saying, okay, it's time. Let's give back to all the females in medical device. Let's help them. Let's make an impact for patients. And it has been so much fun.
It has.
So you said something that I want to dive into just a little bit more. What Jessica and I our mission with this podcast is really bringing the patient's voice and making sure that the services that are out there for patients within healthcare has the patient in mind. And you said something very interesting. You said you're in the OR. Mm-hmm. It sounds very, very different than what we're doing on our side of the business. It sounds like you are just intimately connected to the patient. So can you talk about that a little bit of how you are connected with the patient? It sounds like you get to know them.
Well, we don't get to know them, but especially in aortic, but even in vascular, cardiac, neuro, you are looking at patient films. You're reviewing their anatomy because what you're trying to do is help the physician find the best implant for that patient. So orthopedics does the same thing. Neuro, neurostenting, neurocoiling, cardiac stenting, and aortic, it's aortic stent grafts. We are specifically looking at the patient's anatomy and saying, this is exactly what this patient needs, based on their measurements, based on our measurements, based on the devices that we sell. And then when we're in the OR, we're talking to the physicians on how to put them in. Mm-hmm. We're walking them through the steps of how to implant
do you scrub up?
No.
And go, I'm
No,
like,
I know.
wow.
No,
I'm
I
like,
wish.
I'm
Sometimes
imagining
I
you.
wish, Tina.
I'm like imagining you in the surgery room, like you're scrubbed up and you're in there saying, okay, this is how you place this.
We are not. We're right behind them.
Yes.
We're either
Okay.
right behind them, or in our job, we're under fluoro, so we're wearing the lead.
Yes.
And we're pointing to the screen, and we're marking the screen, and we're talking about what we see. And then we say, okay, do you see, the markers on this stent graft? You need to make sure that you're aligning it to the lines that I'm drawing to make sure everything. Yeah, because you're just another set of eyes. So you're part of the team that's in the room. The physician can do it, but it sure is nice to have the rep there that knows everything about their product, so that if something goes wrong, we can get right into place to help them out.
I am completely shocked.
See, I live this world. My husband's been in medical devices since we've been married, and so he's been in the OR, and he was a communications major.
Wow. But you got to speak up in the OR.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's been doing very well, loves the company. So yeah, he's in the OR.
I'm
every
shocked.
day.
I had no idea.
There's no hands-on. It's all eyes, ears,
Sure.
voice, and communications.
Right.
It's very important to speak up. And our job is to make sure everything goes well with that device and that it is the correct device for the patient. So we are an advocate in a sense to the patient. We do not touch the patient at all whatsoever. We do a lot of the pre-conversations, pre-planning with the doctors, discussing the disease state, what's going to be best long-term. And it's a lot of partnering and thinking for sure.
Yeah.
But then if at any time, think about a device. A device is something that is engineered and made. Some are plastic, some are metal and stainless and nitinol. So think about this. You're in an operating room. There's a surgery going on. What if something breaks?
Right.
What if something pops? So we're there to understand the ins and outs of every little nuance of this device, so we can walk the physicians through, say, no problem, put your hand here, this here, move this back, and we can fix it and whatever. So.
And so what's interesting is I know you guys don't touch the patient in that respect with what device you sell, but what I was telling Tina is I have decided, and it is scheduled, that I'm getting DBS surgery, so deep brain stimulation. Thank you.
That's a big decision.
Yes, it is, and but I'm excited now because especially this week, if she's been seeing all my movements, whether it's because I'm overly medicated or under medicated. And so this is supposed to help even it out. But what I was explaining to her is, the Medtronic rep is going to become like my new best friend, because for DBS, they do come with you to all of your doctor appointments as a follow-up when you get programmed or like turned on. So that is a hands-on type of rep.
Absolutely.
And I just thought that it's just like so, because my husband actually looked into it at one point. And it was before I had Parkinson's. And so I remember him like showing me these videos, and he's like, I would work like with the patient. And I was like, that is crazy.
It's to me, this is exactly what our industry needs. We need more navigation. We need more expertise to help the patient along. And these are some of the gaps that we continuously see on the pharmaceutical side. And it sounds like on the medical device side, you guys have it figured out, where you are the advocate for the patient. And, one of the things that Tina's Warriors, my nonprofit, we're advocating is to bring empathy, compassion back into the care that we're giving patients, and to bring the patient back to the center. And so I listened to the two of you and Jessica and how the Medtronic rep is going to be at all her doctor's appointments, ensuring that everything is correct. You're looking at, while the physician is performing the surgery, to ensure that these devices are implanted correctly. And so what can we learn to bring into the pharmaceutical industry? Because right now, I do feel that patients are not getting enough support.
That's really interesting, because you're right. I wonder if it's because you're not as close to the patient, and it becomes, there's the physician that's involved in it, the office that's involved in it. There's certain reports that they have to follow. Healthcare, in terms of big healthcare, I mean, you have to fit certain boxes in order for these medications to even be given. And, do you fall within this range? Well, if you don't fall within the range, then you may not receive it. Right. I mean, I can say, I know from just getting a little older, good old menopause coming on strong, a lot of physicians don't want to talk about it. Oh, you're fine, Lisa. Your numbers are still fine. Okay, well, I'm on the lowest spectrum of a lot of this, the hormones. I don't feel great. I'd like to feel better. Well, you still fall within my range. So therefore, I can't give you anything. I can't tell you to go and, get hormone replacement or all the things that are out there now, or just in terms of like other therapies that you can be doing. So I wonder, Tina and Jessica, is that something that maybe is part of it? That maybe because there are so many boxes that these patients have to fall into, that it's almost like a filter or a film that keeps the pharmaceutical companies from really being involved in those patients' lives?
Well, it makes me wonder too, when I think of pharmaceutical companies and then I think of medical device and I think of like how pharmaceutical reps, okay, so they go into an office, but they will, have a lunch, and I don't know if the conversations, and maybe that's it. Maybe there's gatekeeping from the pharmaceutical reps in advancing of pharmaceuticals to the doctors and understanding. I mean, maybe there's a knowledge gap there.
That's a great point.
When I think of medical device, there's a gatekeeper issue that we have vendor credentialing for all the hospitals that we go into. And actually, a physician posted on LinkedIn where he had either he was wearing it or rep dressed in orange, because like if you come into the hospital, you have to be credentialed, and all of that makes sense, shots and everything. But some places are taking it too far. And if I think about that, will that limit the help of medical device, helping the doctor help the patient? Because this was a physician that posted about vendor credentialing, that we need to stop treating our vendors like prisoners. And we need them here. We need them to help us. And maybe in pharmaceuticals, it's that same thing. It's that we need to have the pharmacists. We need to have the pharmaceutical marketing companies and research committees and physicians speaking on the benefits of certain advancements.
I mean, I would actually, I would love for, for Parkinson's, because it's all across the board in terms of how doctors handle the initial discussion with the patient and the caregiver. And so much so that there's the education isn't given. That's why. So we keep talking nonprofits, but I have a nonprofit too. It's Changing Parkinson's, and so that's where the kit that we have has all of these just small little tools that I wish somehow either not me, but if there were sales reps in pharma that if we connected to then say, hey, we're gonna not take that kit, but we're gonna give you an education, like a 101, on Parkinson's at the level that you need, that makes sense for you. And I know that's totally far-fetched and it's never gonna happen probably, but that's the I think that's really the difference, because the pharma reps come in and they do a lunch, whereas you guys go in and you do this. You don't do the surgery, but you're in with the surgery. So
absolutely,
that's it is a different patient connection. Whereas ours don't see us at all,
ever.
Mm-mm.
No.
Well, actually,
you're exactly right.
I should say that. So real quick, there are a couple companies that have reps within my local area that they have reached out to our Parkinson's gym. And so they come and they support us, and they'll bring in, neurologists to talk about certain topics, which is great. So a couple of them have found that window in. And so maybe that's something more that, that reps just need to look into.
They need to get more involved with the community support groups and advocacy organizations.
And not just having
100%.
a booth, not just having a booth at a walk, but actually engaging.
To engage and to bring those learnings back into the company and maybe create company-wide change. And that's how I think you bring the patient's voice back inside. And that's the missing link.
And I think what's tough is you with your battle. Unfortunately, you go through a process and you just keep finding these gaps, and you're finding, you're finding all these, areas that don't connect on your own journey. And I just say that for Lisa and I to be sitting on this side and watch two women who are fighting their own diseases just step up and speak up and find ways to really impact and make a difference is extremely commendable. And it's just, I want to see the gaps closed in your journey and in your journey. And I mean, I would love in any ways if medical device could help by, just trying to even just get together and see how things may connect in our world. Could there be any window of opportunity for that to happen in your world? And just, healthcare is an entire big system. And the more we work together, I think the more change we can make and bring to the patient, who is at the end of all of what we're trying to do is help that patient at the very end.
Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if Big Pharma figured it out, that if they had these reps wanting to connect more with the patients, wanting to bring empathy back into it, bring the patient voice back into it, wouldn't it actually help them with regards to their company and their sales and, their data? Because to me, that makes sense, right? The more we are in a small little industry of aortic, but it's a very unique place to be. And people that work in the aortic space usually don't leave. We actually love what we do because a lot of it is we get to fit exactly our devices to the specific patient, and that patient becomes a part of who we are. Our grafts are made hand sewn, and the people that are hand sewing these grafts literally look at the grafts like a patient. They say, here's another patient that we saved today. Wouldn't it be amazing if Big Pharma decided to go after that and say, every single one of these pills or medications that we're creating is saving a patient, and we see their faces. We have patient advocacy days. Our company will highlight patients on a specific day of the implants that we've put in them and how we've saved their lives, their families, their grandchildren, all of the things. Wouldn't it be amazing if Big Pharma did that? I mean, what you're talking about is so big.
It is. So here's something I've learned in the past year that I have become an advocate. Every pharmaceutical company has a patient advocacy arm department. It is really hard to find who those people are within those departments. I have done just searches. I have contacted the quote unquote advocates on LinkedIn. And can you believe very few, actually zero, has ever answered me back?
Really?
Yes. And I go in and say, I am a cancer patient and your company works very heavily in cancer. And even the manufacturers that work in breast cancer, I have reached out numerous times and no response. So to me, sometimes I feel like they have these departments, but what are they doing?
It's almost like they're set up for themselves just to say like, oh, we do have a patient advocacy group and I'm going to do my own research or whatever they need to do. Because, and the other thing that is scary and I feel like I see all the time is that patient advocacy group is just another department. And it's not truly integrated into all the different, all the other areas where to me, it's like you learn from the patient and then they should be presenting or bringing these patients in at critical times or at necessary times within the drug journey or even, post journey. You can go to, I could probably ask people right now and say like, oh, do you have a patient advocacy team? And they'd probably say, I think so, you know?
There's actually, I'm going to backtrack a second. There's two companies that I will say have done a phenomenal job. Eli Lilly, you are a change maker. Amgen, you are a change maker because they have stepped up and they have personally helped me and my family. And their advocacy arm has gotten involved. They have rallied the troops. They have listened and they have promised to make change. So there has been two, but how many pharmaceutical companies are out there? Thousands.
So what did Eli Lilly and you said Amgen do to make it so accessible? I mean, is it like a link on their website? Is it that they, like, how did they be more visible?
So this is the good part and the bad part. The good part is because I am in this industry and because of my network, I was able to quickly access folks that got me in touch with the advocacy arms for those organizations. And once I was connected into the advocacy arms for those organizations, they understood that I was either one, a patient and a caregiver. And they just wrapped their arms around me and my family. And then we've had numerous conversations about a lot of different things. And so they've listened. So, I can't say that it was like I just searched them up, but I utilized my network of my professional network to get to them. But once I did, which was very seamless, they really did pick up and wrap their arms around me. Now, I have also utilized my network to reach out to other advocacy arms with other manufacturers. And I have been introduced into those departments, but not a single phone call or email back. And I will not name those companies because they are very large pharma companies, but shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you.
Yeah. Well, let Eli Lilly and Amgen lead the way.
Yes.
Yes. And they are. So thank you to Eli Lilly and thank you to Amgen.
Awesome. Well, that was pretty powerful. I think we're going to end on that note. But that was that. Honestly, I think the conversation that we just had and the sharing of different, ideas and ways in which we here can think about, but even others, that are going to listen to this, like how can we learn from different groups within healthcare? We're right there next to each other.
And sometimes healthcare just seems like a gigantic spider web, and we're just trying to figure out how to weave everything into the right pattern.
Yep.
So both of you are doing an amazing job,
Yes.
and we can't thank you enough for having us here with you
Yes.
today.
Thank you for having us today. We were so honored to be here, and y'all have some powerful voices, and we'd love to be there to support you guys in any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming here. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching again. And with that, we'll see you soon. Tune in next time.
Till next time.